Gopi Jana Baba Girivarhari Yasoranandana Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Sarva Punjabi Hari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Jaya Radha Punjabi Hari, Radha Punjabi Hari Hari. Jaya Radha Punjabi Hari Hari. Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Baladev, Mai Subhadra. Jaya Nataji Jaya Babu Jaya Srinataji Jaya Giri Govardhan Jaya Gaurani Jai Jaya Gaurani Jai Jaya Gaurani Jai Jaya Gaurani Jai Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Srila Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev. Jaya Vishnupad, Paramahansa Parivrajacharya, Asrasata Shishimada's divine grace, founder of ISKCON, Abhay Charanaravinda Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki, Ananta Gauri Vaishnava Vrinda ki, Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam ki, their most merciful lordship, Sri Radhakunja Vihari ki, Sri Jagannath Sri Baladeva Subhadra ki, Sri Nathji Sri Balagopal ki, Sri Gauranitai ki, Nitai Go Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the Lord and Spirit of Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Narayanam Namaskritya Ram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraya Nasta Prayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhagavati Naistaki. We're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 4, Text 11. Namanti Yat Pada Niketam Atmana Namanti Yat Pada Niketam Atmana Sivaya Aniya Janani Kshatraya Satrava Shivaya Haniya Janani Kshatrava Katam Sa Vira Shriyam Anga Tustyajam Katam Savira Shriyam Anga Tustyajam Yuvaisato Drastum Aho Sahasubhi Yuvarsitrastum Aho Sahusubhi Namanti Yat Paraniketam Atmana Shivaya Haniya Dhanani Satrava Katam Savira Shriyamanga Dustrajam Yavaisatostratum Aho Sahubi Namani Yat Paraniketam Atmana Sivaya Haniya Dhanani Satrava Katam Savira Shriyamanga Dustyajam Yudvaya Satostastum Ahusasthanubhi Namanti Yat Paraniketam Atmana Shivaya Haniya Dhanani Satrava Katam Savira Shriyamanga Dustyajam Yavaya Satosrastum Ahusasubhi
Namanti Yat Pada Nitam Atmana
Namanti Yat Paraniketam Atmana
Sivaya Dhanani Satrava
Shinari Aniya Dhanani Satrava
Katam Sa Virashriyam Anga Dusyajam
Vira Shriyamanga Dustyajam
Yuvasat Ashram Sas Aho Sahasupi
Yavaya Tustosham Aho Sahustubi. Word for word. Namani,
Namani,
Namanti,
Namanti,
bow down. Yatpada,
Yapada,
whose feet,
whose feet,
Niketam,
Niketa,
under.
under,
Atmana,
Atma,
Om. Shivaya,
Shivaya,
welfare. Aniya,
Aniya,
used to bring about.
to bring about
Dhanani, wealth. Satrava, enemies. Katam, for what reason? Sa, he. Vira, the chivalrous. Shriyam, opulences. Anga, oh. How come it's not in this book? Oh, wait a minute. Anga, let's see. Anga just says O here for some reason, but it should, Anga, it just says O.
Okay, that's correct.
And yours it says O Goswami?
Yes.
O Sutta Goswami, okay. Dushyajam, insuperable.
Insuperable.
Yuva,
Yuva,
in full youth.
in full youth.
Aisata,
Aisata,
desired.
desired.
Utstrasum,
Utsastum,
to give up.
to give up.
It's even hard to say, to speak of to do it. Aho,
Aho,
exclamation.
exclamation.
Saha,
Saha,
with.
with.
Asubi,
Asumi,
life.
life.
Namanti atparani kamatmana. Shivaya haniya dananam satrava katam savira shriyamanga dustya jam yudvai yastrats aho sahastubi. He was such a great emperor that, translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Abhaya Charananavinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila. He was such a great emperor that all his enemies would come and bow down at his feet and surrender all their wealth for their own benefit. He was full of youth and strength, and he possessed insuperable kingly opulences. Why did he want to give up everything, including life? Please repeat. He was such a great emperor that all his enemies would come and bow down at his feet and surrender all their wealth for their own benefit. He was full of youth and strength, and he possessed insuperable kingly opulences. Why did he want to give up everything? Including his life. He was such a great, all his enemies would come and bow down at his feet and surrender all their wealth for their own benefit. He was full of youth and strength, and he possessed insuperable kingly opulences. Why did he want to give up everything, including his life? Report by His Divine Grace, by Charananavinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. There was nothing undesirable in his life. He was quite a young man and could enjoy life with power and opulence. So there was no question of retiring from active life. There was no difficulty in collecting the state taxes because he was so powerful and chivalrous that even his enemies would come to him and bow down at his feet and surrender all wealth for their own benefit. Jai Shri Shri Jai Jagannath, Jai Baladev, Jai Shri Shri Jai. Maharaj Parikshit was a pious king. He conquered his enemies, and therefore the kingdom was full of prosperity. There was enough milk grains and metals. The rivers and mountains were full of potency. So materially, everything was satisfactory. Therefore, there's no question of untimely giving up his kingdom and life. The sages were eager to hear about all this. Om Gyan Tamarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshushitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So here we're seeing the qualities of such an exalted soul as Maharaj Parikshit, that such glorious godly qualities that he possessed in his own personality that would be recognized even by his own enemies. Rare in this time is there such magnificence to be seen as one who can control the entire population of the world and be looked at as one so endowed by the Supreme Person that they would know that by giving to such a person, they themselves gain tremendous benefit. Just like in this now present day and age, Srila Prabhupada has made comment that anyone that gives any of a contribution to this Krishna conscious movement, they're going to get at least a human birth their next time around. So this is quite a statement to be made. But it is made by one who is carrying on the path, who is shedding light upon the path that we walk upon to know what are the principles of Krishna consciousness. So valuable it is, consciousness itself, the most valuable fortune that human life has itself to offer to the human being, the soul that is able to indwell a body that is able to encapsulate the consciousness with itself, Supreme Personality of Godhead, within this body that we are residing, of mucus, pus, and blood. The Supreme Personality of Godhead in his ultimate kindness, because he is love itself. He has not left any living entity to their own whims, but he has come with all of us for the fulfillment of our desires to try and find some satisfaction outside the realm of the spiritual world, which there is none to be found. But those who have renounced this seeking for pleasure in this external energy, as Maharaj Parikshit has, giving up even his life for the service that his body could be used in. So they are questioning why such a soul. But now I don't know that we have account of any followed in the footsteps of Maharaj Parikshit, do we? Because the qualifications for such a position are so extremely high. And you have so various types of people in this day and age whose realm of consciousness don't even include pious activities. So finding someone who is so controlled in their life that they can give guidance to every person on the planet. But this is Krishna consciousness. This is the nature of Krishna consciousness, that it is meant for everyone to benefit by. So, in order for us to benefit in that same way, we have to develop this consciousness of wanting to give to that emperor, Maharaj Parikshit, our full attention. And that's what this Srimad Bhagavatam is, that conversation he is having with Sukadeva Goswami, the same way his great-great-grandfather was having that conversation with Krishna on the battlefield. Arjuna and Krishna speaking. So, this conversation, even though Arjuna was not in the position to be the emperor, the position of fighting for was simply to have the responsible function as Kshatriyas to govern a part of the world that they were given the responsibility of. But those who were in the position, the crews, unrightly so even, having taken over the inheritance, because their father being blind, nevertheless being the oldest brother, was given, right, the rule of the kingdom, of the dynasty. But the principles that were fought for on the battlefield, what was the overpowering force that brought about the outcome for the Pandavas, by Krishna's establishing right from wrong and establishing principles of righteousness, uprightness, and truth, justice, mercy, these things the Pandavas were fighting for, having been themselves threatened by the Kauravas many, many times, their own existence being threatened, with no cause, simply envy, lust, desire for that which is unnecessary. And that same thing is what drives us from being able to perform pure devotional service, is that which keeps us from having that desire to serve Krishna only and not to find any other purpose with the energy that we put out with these bodies. And in that way, we will automatically experience that happiness and bliss that we were to know. This is the nature of Krishna, and this is the nature we are, full of bliss, happiness, all the time. And how we can remember is by keeping our minds intently reading, studying, chanting, hearing, sharing association with devotees, and having a simple life, experiencing the pleasure of not having any connections to the things in this material world. That's real freedom. But people are thinking freedom to be having things in this world. And so, in effect, it's actually the opposite. What is happening? People are gathering things to gain pleasure, when it is a disattachment from those things that is going to provide for us the realization of Krishna's complete control of everything. And knowing he is in control of everything, if we are serving him, then we have everything we need, which he himself provided, to do just that, to use these lives in perfect submission by the will, by the desire we have in our hearts. What do we want is the question we have to answer. What do we want in life? Do we want to serve Krishna? Or do we want something else? And when we come to the honest conclusion that the best there is the most beautiful, the most famous, the most strong, the most wealthy, the most knowledgeable, and the most renounced. This is Krishna. And so this is what we really want. All these perfections that can be developed in a human being can only be really found in Krishna. And so Krishna sharing this body with us can manifest through us as human beings various aspects to some degree or another. But if we instead are envious of others' positions, we want to do this thing, we want to do that thing, we have our own plans, we won't be able to know the completeness of Krishna's consciousness with us. Because Krishna's consciousness is so totally different from envy, lust, greed, these things as human beings that we feel for ourselves. And Krishna doesn't feel like that. So we want to know the magnificence of the joy and glory and bliss of being pure and having Krishna's consciousness shared with mind, shared with our consciousness. And then we'll be happy. That's what happiness is. That's what we are made of, happiness. The substance we are is bliss, actually. It even goes beyond happiness in order to put it in some kind of way for us to be able to understand who we are. Srila Prabhupada uses the term bliss. Can you imagine what it would feel like if you were all powerful? Everything was under your control. We have no way of knowing. We don't even know the extent of creation itself, or the extent of what we can say of the manifest material. We can't even figure out in our minds the extent of that, and yet that in and of itself plays a very small portion, if anything at all, in the makeup of the spiritual world, in which all living entities there, having resided there since time immemorial, presently engaged personally with Krishna in youthful, eternal pastimes, never having to leave that place of total bliss, ecstasy. Now, there's a comparison between bliss and ecstasy. People don't think about these things. People fill their minds with the agony of the material world. How many people died today? How many people got murdered? How many sicknesses there are in the hospital? All these things that do not, never will, never have, never can exist in the spiritual world. And in the consciousness of those who are there. They know none of these things in the material world. Moments that we fill with troubles, disease and death, old age, even birth itself. All these concepts are completely foreign to those who are in the spiritual, eternal realm with Krishna. How it is that an eternity can dwell within a finite existence. And yet here we are all, eternal souls dwelling within temporary situation, within a temporary situation. Like the passing of the seasons, and the flowers come and flowers go. So the material worlds manifest, and then boom, they're gone. And we have been coming and going, coming and going. Sometimes Brahma, sometimes ants, sometimes deer, sometimes reindeer, sometimes angels, sometimes Gandharva. Just floating all about the earth, going here and there, looking for ways to find pleasure. And here we have the greatest means of experiencing the highest forms of pleasure available in this human form, by this chanting of Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama, 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 Hare Hare. When we start, it's like something you think you have to do. But then as you become more and more familiar with the experience that it gives you, then you begin to develop a want to. Yeah. And a real, this time we see newcomers come and they say, oh wow, I wish I had time. Krishna is time. Krishna is giving us of himself, he's giving us time. What does that mean? What does that mean? When we come here, we have a certain amount of time, right? By the activities we engaged in before, which were in the material world, which are limited. So the amount of time we have given to us at birth, because of previous activities with the material world being limited now, in Krishna we know the time eternal. So, wow. How can a finite thing turn into an eternal thing? That's the mystery happens on the altar, actually. We take these very easily perishable forms of life, the green peppers, the eggplants, and all these forms of life, they perish almost within moments, just a day or two, and they bleh, down to a mud puddle, just bleh. And yet, by Krishna's glance, by simply the power and the energy that comes out of Krishna himself, it transforms that perishable item into that that touched the very soul, giving the soul itself that substance because it is created with the force of love. And then when love is reciprocated with, then that love is doubled. So love's force is like an expanding force, like mother is given. Mothers are given expanding force. Fathers are given renouncing force, withdrawing. Father is simplifying things. Mother is more. We need this for that. We need this for this thing. We need that for that thing. Father has to go out and do it all. Bring it home. Bring it home. That's the way it's made. That's the way it's supposed to be. Devotees have mentality towards each other in marriage, and they see each other as helpers. Sometimes in marriages in the material world, they see others as competitors. No, I got to be the man or the woman. I got to do this. I got to have this way. If we fulfill the functions our bodies are most suited for, life will be much easier for us to conduct ourselves as human beings. And by applying the principles, what to speak then, we can experience the highest consciousness which people are searching to experience by the pursuit of life's endeavors to gain wealth and all these things that they think is going to replace consciousness. So all of these things that don't supply happiness will madness when one finds out that they don't. They've made all this endeavor for all this result that they thought they would get from it. But it doesn't give that. It doesn't have the ability. See, in effect, actually, it's the worship of the material world itself. When a man has a picture in his mind of the car he wants to buy, what place is the car taking if that same moment can be filled by the realization of the supreme personality of Godhead, who is at every moment available to us to realize. But we are instead putting other things in our minds, and we can't think of ourselves as elevated enough to be able, as Haridas, chanting all day long, not sparing a moment. But this is Lord Brahma. He is Lord Brahma. And he reveals to us the qualification he had to be Brahma. And so one head's not even enough, you can see by his life. He's chanting all day long, hardly sleeping, not even hardly, barely, if he is. But so he needs more than one head to meditate and sing and speak the mantras he is filling his consciousness with. So we'll find more meaningful application principles, and Krishna will give us more facility to do that as we continually fill up our consciousness with Krishna consciousness. Because facility, Krishna says, I am the ability in man. What does that mean? It means that energy that we are looking to be able to fulfill the purpose we have in life with is there in Krishna, and all we have to do for him then. So in every endeavor that we're making now, he's giving us the ability to apply it to that furtherance of his energy, his knowledge, his truth, his consciousness, So it doesn't have to be separate from our, we don't have to think different in the way of looking at other souls, right? We don't have to look at other souls as any differently than Krishna is instructing us to look at other souls as, and he does. He looks at us having seen us eternally existing. He knows us when he knew us face to face. He knew us then. So as souls, if we're not self-realized, we don't know how Krishna sees us, right? So we get in our mind doubts and fears and worries. And why am I doing? And why am I going through this thing? And why is this thing bothering me like that? Why do I have to take this as a punishment? All these thoughts go through our minds. When at the same time, love for Krishna can be experienced. This is what the gopis are experiencing with everything they're interacting in that they have available to them. It's a reminder of Krishna. And so they're experiencing separation from Krishna even by looking at a bird, even by hearing the sound of frogs. Everything reminds them of Krishna. And so we want to be brought to that place where everything reminds us of Krishna. And then what will come out of our mouth will be that will give other people the realization and the help to be able to remember Krishna all the time. We're looking at this dementia. I was realizing the other day, we're calling amnesia, dementia, Alzheimer's. You forget everything, right? But there is within the soul who has committed grievous activities, sinful activities, the desire for everything to just start all over. There's a lot of people that like to just have a clean slate. But isn't that what Alzheimer's is? And people are getting it right before they're leaving their bodies. Most of this stuff people store in this world is not going to be available in their next life. If they're going to a better place, if they're going to a worse place, none of it's available there. If you're going to the heavenly planets, you're going to have a whole different life altogether. Their bodies are not used for reproduction like ours are. So this thing that we have about lust, it's not the same. Their bodies are given for pleasure, but in elevated ways that we don't have access to with these forms of bodies. But by consciousness and knowing this, we can develop the same kind of habits that will give us that kind of experience. And that's what Krishna consciousness is opening us up as souls to have the ability to gain eventually. We think of ourselves as a form of life on this planet, but in the universe, we're very low beings. There's upstars, angels, Gandharvas. Even ghosts are higher than human beings, the mental platform. It's like in a dream state. When you're dreaming, your false ego has pretty much gone away. You're letting everything happen, and you're not thinking of yourself as able to control everything, right? So your false is gone. So the scripture says sometimes Krishna will talk to us through our dreams. So why would he do that one day and then another day not? Because if we are doing in our mind every day, developing this habit of only thinking about Krishna, it continues through the night. Because the same practice you put your mind in the day, it will continue doing that same thing you've trained it to do through the day. And then your nighttime will be the same pleasurable experience with Krishna. If you're reading Krishna book, especially at night, you're going to be thinking about Krishna before you rest. So everything that has to do with Krishna consciousness, now the soul is going to find what they call sakor. Is like always healed state. When you recover from sickness, when you recover, from having broken an arm or something. I've never broken an arm, but I know what a sprained ankle's like. When you recover, just being recovered, which was previously normal, seems like a great event of happiness to be celebrated, right? But you're just being brought to normalcy. But see, that's what Krishna consciousness is wanting to reveal to us, is the normalcy of the spiritual world. What is normal there? That's what we want to think about. That's the kind of mentality we want to develop. That's the kind of happiness we will enjoy and experience as we apply these principles of Krishna consciousness. Devotees are telling me, you look the same way you did many years ago, Well, Krishna is the same today and forever. He hasn't changed at all. So how he manifests himself and how he showed himself to be in Vrindavan 5,000 years ago. For those who were with him personally there, when he takes them back to the spiritual world, they will know him personally there also. He's not any different. So see, we are having that same tremendous privilege to know by Krishna's authorized form. Krishna is not formed out of a man's imagination in these deity forms that we worship. This worship is not going to a stone, because Srila Prabhupada asked Krishna to come here, and it is by his request that Krishna came. We can, by authority, offer these foods to Krishna. Otherwise, how would we be able to continue? I was told in the early days, you can chant. If you think you can find a thing that will give you this, try chanting Coca-Cola for a few. You will see something keeps devotees going, and it is the happiness they find with doing what Krishna says to do. Because it's the best way to live. It's the easiest way to live. And it's the freest way to live. Sinless. We live sinless. Just by keeping the four regulated rules, and by doing that, we experience a free, clear conscience, free, clear consciousness, free, clear ability to go out and know whatever you aim your life to do, it's going to be a success, because you're aiming to please Krishna. And Krishna's in control of everything. You can't fail. You can't fail. This is the glory of God. Serving God, servant of the most supreme, you can't fail. Can't fail. We may fall down, we may have hardships, but Krishna, once you taste Krishna's consciousness, you won't want anything else. You won't want to go away. Yeah, it's the eternal nectar that we've been longing for, and it's satisfying. That's how we can be happy anywhere. Be happy and don't. Because your consciousness is what is the experienced life. And the soul that has it connected to Krishna knows that consciousness of Krishna consciousness. Taste of his holy names is always available, always there. And he will never leave you. Jai. Any comments, any questions, any realizations in me?
We were talking about like reading Krishna book before bed and like in your dreams and when you wake up and stuff. It just reminded me of my spiritual master because when he left his body, a video came out in which like because every morning he would be there for Mangarati and stuff. And then even in his dreams, they showed that he was doing art as well.
Wow.
And stuff while he was sleeping. And so I just feel like it's so true. Like if we fill our days with like devotional service, even while we sleep, we might be doing devotional service.
Yeah, yeah.
So amazing.
Wow. See, now speak as well. As devotees speak with each other. If they're connected with Krishna, they're getting realization while the person is speaking, and it is adding to what we realize about God, food to the soul. Sometimes I get so overwhelmed and I'm afraid sometimes before speaking that, you get choked up. You can't help it because it's such a glorious Krishna consciousness, such a glorious experience. I don't deserve it. I haven't done anything in life that, hasn't been made easy to do. And I lived a very sinful life before I ever, first surrendered to Christ. There was no reason why God, out of his unlimited mercy, found any to pick me out of the mud hole, I was living in. But it's causeless. It's the meaning of prasad, it's mercy. It's causeless. There's no reason for it. It's his own nature, though. It's just the way he is. He can't be any other way. Just like we can't. We are souls. We are Satchidananda, and we can't change that. But knowing that, wow, yeah. And knowing our purpose, and knowing now, because our purpose is to serve Krishna, we can't fail. Just have to remember that. There's no failures in Krishna consciousness. Even what might seem to be a failure from people on the outside, some devotees have even turned sinful. But still, once having connected to Krishna, there will be some realization, some reckoning in the end. You can't avoid Krishna once you've come in contact with him. Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.